Hello, Hobbits. It's crazy, but the game that is supposedly all about cooking and sharing meals doesn't really explain you the basic cooking mechanics that well. Welcome to Shire Academy, where we help fellow Hobbits with their everyday tasks. In this video, we're not gonna dive too deep into the whole cooking system and every station you can have eventually in the game, but we will try and just cover the basic cooking and how the process goes and give you some useful tips to start you on your cooking journey. So here we go into our kitchen, activate our menu here and choose what to cook. Let's say we're gonna cook the bywater dish because it has quite a few ingredients, so I can just keep showing you the basic cooking techniques a couple of times here. So we'll choose some basic flour and cream for this dish, and then we're gonna start choosing our different flavor ingredients. Now, by combining different flavors, you can secure a flavor for your overall dish. So let's say we get a purple mushroom, which would have a potential to make this dish sweet. We take a brown tater as well. Now there's enough sweet ingredients so that the dish is going to become sweet, you see here in the top left, without even adding any seasoning. And then we can add a salty fish, for example, that doesn't change our dish from being sweet overall. Now if we back out a little bit and we add a sour tater here, see that the flavors are mixed, so the dish flavor overall is still uncertain. And then if we find a sour fish as well, the sour flavor is going to dominate, and so the dish is going to become sour. Now this says unseasoned because additionally when we're cooking some of these ingredients, we can add seasoning like a spicy cinnamon or salty, basically salt. When we add these seasonings, we can change the flavor of these individual ingredients and ultimately change the flavor of the dish itself. And that's important because sometimes we want to cook what would normally be a sweet dish, for example, but we need to make it a little bit more spicy to satisfy some hobbits' spicy craving. So that's how you would do it. You would add seasoning and you would add them during the frying pan stage of cooking. Now there are other stages of cooking where you can add additional seasoning as well, but because this is about cooking basics and we don't have all the stations available, as I mentioned, we're only gonna cover the very basics and the initial stations that you get, which is a frying pan, a mixing bowl, and a chopping board. So let's go back to our bywater dish, the big pie. Select the ingredients again. Let's say we go with a sweet mushroom, a sour vegetable, and a sour fish like we did before. Now we start cooking, and with flour we can just assemble it into our main dish. We cannot fry the flour obviously, and we cannot chop it. So the same with cream. And now you see we have the chopping board available, so the mushrooms can be chopped. When we hover over the chopping board, we can see a new line show up on this right bottom kind of texture matrix, we could call it. On this matrix, we're trying to reach this little star, which is an additional quality for our overall dish. We're trying to reach it with our dish. So let's think clearly here. How do we reach this star? We need to go up the smooth chunky scale. So our dish needs to be a little bit more smooth than it is right now. And we also need to go to the right on the tender crisp scale. So in order to, let's take it one step at a time. In order to get to a bit more smoother texture, we naturally would need to cut up these ingredients more smoothly or more smooth than chunky. So let's start cutting our mushrooms here. We cut by clicking with the mouse, and we can already continue, but this is too chunky. If we go all the way to the middle between chunky and smooth, the dish itself is not gonna move up or down. It's gonna stay in the same spot. So since we want to go up into the smooth area, we need to cut it a bit more smooth than the middle, than the balanced spot. So let's do a couple more actions. Now we're a little bit more into the smooth, and press continue and see if that was enough. Let's assemble it. And it moved up, but it clearly didn't move up enough, so we can make it even more smooth. And we need to start moving the dish to the right by tenderizing it. We would tenderize it by frying it in the pan a little bit. Again, you'll get more stations to make it more crisp or more tender in the future. But for these ingredients, we can tenderize them in the pan. So that's what we're gonna try and do. So let's not forget, we still want to make it more smooth. So let's do the chopping board first. We go to the middle. That would keep the dish where it is. So we need to make it more smooth. That means we're gonna do a few more chops and then continue from here. Now we can continue by mixing it, or before mixing it, we can fry it in the frying pan to make it a little bit more tender. You can see the bar starts to show up here in the right bottom corner, where it shows us that we can make it a little bit more tender. We cannot make it any more crisp at the moment with the frying pan. The other stations that you unlock later are gonna help us with that, but that's gonna be covered separately, not in the basics cooking video. So here we're just gonna try and make it a little bit more tender. We put our ingredients into the frying pan. We could add cinnamon to make it more spicy, and it starts tenderizing. We can press once to flip it, and then we press continue, and we're almost at the star. Look at that. We didn't fry it completely, so we didn't fully reach the star with this one. We'll assemble these ingredients now, and we still have our fish to prepare. So that's where we're gonna try and reach that star finally. So let's start chopping. If we chop again to the middle, we're not gonna move the dish at all. So this is already good enough in terms of smoothness. We just needed to bring it to the right in terms of tenderness. But let's still do one more chop into a bit of a smoother side to make the dish go up just a little bit. And look, we press continue, it goes up. It's perfectly lined up and ready for our star now. We just need to make it a little bit more tender by frying it in the pan. Let's not add any more seasoning before we fry this fish. We can check the ruby tater. From sour, it turned into spicy because we fried it with spicy seasoning, which was cinnamon in our case. So you see how that seasoning works by adding it during the frying stage. And now we're just gonna fry the fish without any additional seasoning, and we're only gonna fry it a little bit. So you see, we only need to move it a little bit to the right to reach that star. So pretty much as soon as we're able to take it off the fire by pressing R on PC, for example, we're gonna take it off the fire. So let's start frying it. And you see it starts moving, it's moving, and now it's available to take it off, and we take it off. Boom, we reach the star perfectly. We'll assemble that, and that gave us an extra star. We were cooking a 1-star meal with all 1-star ingredients, and we got an extra star for reaching that additional quality point on the texture matrix. So this is basically what we need to learn about early cooking in Tales of the Shire. That should cover the cooking basics. Let's go over what we've learned. With the basic stations, you can chop the ingredients and you can fry the ingredients, and the chopping is gonna make the whole dish either more smooth or more chunky. And then frying, it just helps you tenderize the dish. In order to make it more crispy, you're gonna have to use additional stations which you unlock later in the game. Additionally, in the frying pan, you can also season your ingredients before frying, and that's gonna help you change the flavor of individual ingredients, potentially changing the whole flavor of the dish itself. Now, if you go to Encyclopedia and press recipes here, you'll see this flavor combos chart right here. And by mixing only 2 flavors in every dish, so if you mix 3 flavors, you're not gonna unlock anything on this combo chart. But by mixing only two flavors, as it says right here, you're gonna start discovering good and bad flavor combinations. So if you mix a sweet ingredient with a salty ingredient and you cook that dish, you'll discover that sweet and salty goes well together and it gets a star, and that means you can have a higher quality dish by mixing these 2 ingredients. But if you mix salty and sour, that doesn't mix. You'll get an X here, and from there you'll know that sour and salt doesn't really mix, and you're not gonna get an additional star. So as you experiment with all these flavors, you'll see I have some question marks here still that I haven't experimented with. But as you experiment with the different 2 flavor combinations, you'll learn that some of them give you an extra quality star. So sweet and spicy goes well together, sweet and sour, sweet and bitter, basically sweet and salty as well. So sweet goes great with any other flavor combinations. And then there's some other ones that you can unlock and double check. So refer back to your Encyclopedia Recipes tab to see how you can earn an extra quality star on your dishes by mixing only 2 flavors. And again, as we mentioned, if the recipe is forcing you into a specific flavor, for example, a spicy mushroom, and then a spicy vegetable, and then you want a salty fish, but maybe you don't have it, you can take any other flavor of fish, but then salt it during frying to make it salty. And that way you'll mix only spicy with salty for 2 flavor combination. Alright Hobbits, that should cover everything we need to learn about basic cooking. I make these videos to help you or provide you with some good time. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button or subscribe. And I hope to see you again in Shire Academy. Crazy Trick, out.